It is the GSL semifinals. In the bottom right of this best of 5, starting on Site Delta, it is Cure. And in the top left, we do have the Red Zerg, Dark. I think once upon a time they were teammates, but now obviously Cure on Team Liquid, Dark on Talon Esports, right? Pretty good pickup. Both players looking for that GSL title, of course, but their opponents could either be Creator or Maru. We're going to be playing the next best of 5, the PVT for that one. So ended up having a good racial balance, 2 Terrans, as it should be. 1 Protoss and 1 Zerg. If that's what you get this year, 2024 GSL, that's pretty good, actually. 2011... 2012 would have been all Terran. Well, no, it would have been all Zerg, actually. 2012 would have been all Zerg. 2011 would have been all Terran. And then, I actually worried a little bit about not having a Zerg in 2024, actually, weirdly enough. Dark, not having the best win record against Hero, was forced to face him in the decider match and decided that now was the best time to perform well, which Dark is usually pretty good at. He definitely can turn it on for the prestigious moments. Cure, I feel like, doesn't really get affected by crowds. He doesn't really get affected by his opponents that much. I mean, maybe a little something hang up against Maru a little bit, but who doesn't, am I right? And he defeated him actually in the group, so it's a little less of a hang up nowadays. But anyways, I feel like Cure, he's kind of a level Terran, and he's very dependable. You bring home to your mom, okay? And that's great for 9 out of 10 times as he advances forward into, say, the round of 4. So he's actually pretty dependable. You could bet on him making it to the round of 4 and no one would really blink an eye. But actually make it to the finals, winning the finals, that's where things have kind of eluded Cure for a while. Dark has tons of accolades on his side. I mean, Cure does as well, but Dark even more so, world champion and all that. Is looking at military service in the near future, as we have totally normal TDZ openers right now. 1 Rex Expand versus 3 Hatch. So just contextualizing a little bit, for Dark, you know, it kind of a little bit of the zest thing where it's like he's been going to the military for a while at this point, but it is always true. There is no deception. It's just a little weird how they actually, like, finally call you up for military, especially when you're actually capable of asking for, you know, time to go to the main event, go to the World Championship, like whatever you have to do, right? The Korean government's actually a little lax on that one. Esports actually having some type of, you know, professionalism over there, kind of. Anywho, but the truth is that, like, this could very well be his last year of playing StarCraft 2, if it's not the last year of StarCraft 2 in general. Anyways, but Dark, you know, he's actually looking forward to military service. He's currently a dad as well. His kid was born a couple of months ago, so that also has been taking up a lot of his time. And it's kind of reaching the end of a saga, perhaps, unless he could come back in 2 years, which would be awesome. But unlikely. So that's kind of why a lot of people are maybe cheering for Dark in a lot of these tournaments that have been always nearing his military service. You know, Katowice, you gotta cheer for him. What if he goes to military service? GSL Season 1, you gotta cheer for him. What if he goes to military service? So on and so forth. So I am personally one of those people. You can go back in the VODs of Katowice and look at me cheering on Dark and booing against the Maru Serial Finals, which I feel very confident that I was right about that. Maru Serial Finals continuing to be a huge disappointment, both at Katowice as well as Dallas. But anywho, Dark is a fun player. Cure is that standard guy who's playing very standard indeed. 3cc, double engineering bay up on the way. Very, very greedy build. The greediest you can be. And Dark, well, we know him as a little bit cheesy, a little bit more aggressive, and he is actually going for a Roachborn that's a little hidden. So typically when this is more hidden on the backside, they are going to add on, let's say, up to 10 roaches to just either scare the Terran, give him old spooky boot, or to actually commit a little more, like build the Ravagers as well, and actually try and take advantage of, well, for instance, a supremely greedy build from the Terran, which, by the way, you don't even get a wall with this because 3rd CC actually makes up your supply depots. So Dark would know just by the supply depots that this is a 3rd CC because he has otherwise very limited information. So I would guess he knows that if it's going to be a 3cc build without any starport presence, And so far there is not, so he's kind of like, okay, it's probably not that. And it's also probably a fast engineering bay one. If you're going to be greedy, why not go the whole hog? And if he's guessing that, he's right. And if he's guessing that, and that's why he's committing to an all-in, Ravagers being built, Lings are on the way, well, then it makes a whole lot of sense. Kira has very limited tools to defend, something that he did figure out was on the way. He is building a bunker, but one bunker will probably not stand up enough. The Ravagers will tear that down, and the Lings will come in once that is down. Hopefully get us around on the Hellions. That would be ideal for them. The Hellions right now, the only thing they can help out with is dealing with the Lings. Obviously not very helpful against the Roach Ravagers, so while the Lings actually dedicate to also helping tear down that bunker, it's not even about the Lings at this point. The Lings are typically what ensures victory, but the Roach Ravager is really what breaks through and makes you worried in the first place. And I gotta say, Kira might be more than a little worried. He is in a lot of trouble. There was just not much to put into that one bunker. There was hardly enough to even get a second bunker if he could get one. And I think we are looking at perhaps a game over. Dark bringing out the Roach Ravager Ling all-in, when really it is the absolute 100% most appropriate build. Sometimes this build can look a little weak. We've seen Dark try it before against similar greed, but let's say they add on like a faster tank or they actually have a Banshee, so it's not quite the same. And the Terran might be able to hold on, and it's actually kind of weird, or sometimes it falls flat in his face, and we go on about how Zerg doesn't really have a lot of good all-ins. But this is the most ideal situation, and Dark choosing to go for it, either to just show off game number one, like bring the heat right off the bat, or because this Overlord remained unfazed. Like, it continually scouted and was able to confirm 3CC, no starport, and no tank production, which, you know, could have happened. I'm not even sure that would have saved him. We are watching Kira actually try and survive, though, so I mean, I'm pretty sure this game is over, even though Kira refuses to admit that, but okay, all right. So just to give context to where Kira is, he is back on 2 bases mining, technically, but his natural is lifted, so he's not producing SCVs. He can't produce SCVs, actually. He's too busy trying to produce an army. And okay, he is going to tap out. 5 workers, y'all. 5 workers, 19 army supply with 1-1. And then way more on the side of Dark. So yeah, Dark, he just chose the right build. Game number 1 starting off really strong here. Had a little bit of a scout, is that type of player to go for an all-in right off the bat, and also probably just figuring that that is what his opponent would do. Cure, if he's going to go for a 1-Rex expand, might go ahead and just, again, go full greed. And that is exactly what he did. Or maybe if it was Beyond, you would have had to have a little more doubt in your mind about what that build was. But again, the supply depots are also a reveal. So Dark, they're doing exactly what he should do and getting game 1 victory. Very quickly into game 2 on Oceanborn. Top left, we have Dark. Bottom right, it is Cure. Cure opts to go extreme in the macro sense for game number 1. That would be what he would do, isn't it? That is kind of Cure there. Although he has brought out also some proxies as well, so I don't want to completely label him as a macro player, but he pretty much is. And then Dark strikes hard and fast, as we would expect Dark to do, and just really the most promising situation for Roach Ravager Ling all-in. Good decision to, you know, actually all-in with it. Not just give a little tap in. A couple of roaches just to scare him. That would have been nothing. That would have been terrible, actually, because that would have been Dark affording things he absolutely would not be doing anything with, and taking away from his economy, while Cure was just like balling in money. All right, he would have been super rich. So definitely had to all in at that point. But when 2 extremes meet on either end of the spectrum, extreme aggression versus extreme greed, extreme aggression it's supposed to work. This is literally what it's supposed to do. You know, are there ways that Cure could have played that better? I'm not even sure there could have been. He was so limited on what he could actually get. The only thing I could see him doing is diving with Hellions to see the Roachborn as the Roaches pop, and then maybe being able to produce a tank in time. But even then, as I said, not sure that would have been enough. It would have been, had to be put in the natural, obviously still kind of a vulnerable position. There was no wall, and even if there was, it would have been broken down very quickly. Yeah, I don't know if that would have saved him or not. But that is the risk you take as Cure when you go for a super greedy build. So it's also one of those situations where it's very promising for Dark to get that game Maru on victory and show that his strengths are still his strengths. Being aggressive really works for him. But for Cure, you know, it is also kind of a build that you're just like, that happens. You know, what are you going to do? So you don't maybe necessarily feel like mentally like that you're going to be demolished because like game 1 went so poorly for you. Well, it was really a build thing. I think it's a very different follow-up on the mentality if you get demolished in a game because you mismicroed your 2 drops into queens. Your Hellions dive and they get surrounded by Lings. Your push-outs happens as a Ling run-by comes in and kills 20 SCVs, and you gotta get home, and then you're not having a push-out anymore. Like, that's the type of game that gets really awkward and stuttery, and I think would make you wonder if you can actually do anything against the Zerg player. That last game was really a build order win. There are very few, I think, hard build order wins, but that was maybe one of them. This is obviously a 2-racks forward position here. Dark did get that scouts, and the Overlord is even trying to ensure that there's nothing else sneaky going on here. Seeing the command center already reveals that it's not a surprise 3-racks, but I think he's also trying to get maybe this into a more clever location. Would not mind it whatsoever. Waiting to see if the 3rd CC comes down is a little sketch, because they can make a Marine after the Reapers and not build Tech Lab or Reactor. But in this case, Cure is actually going upwards to 5 Reapers. Feels like it's been a while since I've said that. A lot of 4 Reaper action coming out, sure. 3 Reapers being the standard. But 5? That's a little extra spice here that Dark might not be anticipating. So far, so good on Dark's defense, however. He is saving his queens, his slow Lings, because this was a late gas, faster 3rd build. Appropriately defending the high ground as much as they possibly can, right? Another healthy queen comes forward, but since this is actually 5 Reapers, and Dark was unable to know that, he moved his Overlord. Oh, I was going to say it's a little sketch because all of them are now injured, but then a 4th queen pops up, and I feel like 4 queens versus 5 Reapers is actually okay, unless they were all on death's door. Even a transfuse finally coming in, Dark feeling confident enough to transfuse once, creep timber 2nd. I think he's very appropriate here. That worked out timing-wise pretty nicely for Dark, which is very unfortunate for Cure, because I do think that there is a chance Dark messes that up. The first 2 queens that were severely injured do die, and then there's only 2 more queens after. That is easily microable, and then slow Lings are here basically forever. So if you don't have queens, you don't have anything. That actually could have been a very, very dangerous situation if any one of those queens had died. That would have started the snowball against 6 Reapers, my bad. But because it didn't happen, then you have Cure doing a slightly unideal economic opener, although he did make up for it for an on-location 3rd CC. But then you're also talking about the delayed Tech Lab and Reactor, because he made 3 more Reapers than normal. It's 150, 150. Just lost Reaper as well, so less backstab potential, more that happens. And it looks like Dark, having, you know, all the information right now, the Overlord actually might die, funnily enough. He didn't have to, but whatever. Is once again going to all in. The Roach Warren has been put in the back to kind of hide itself. Medic Block Boost is in fact on the way and will finish in due time. What's usually more important for those Lings to be able to reinforce quickly. They're not the units that break the wall, right? They're actually notoriously bad at that. But you do want those Speedlings following things up. And in this case, the 5 Reapers are even more useless than the Hellions were last game. Reapers do finally scout a Roach, but the Roaches are already on the front line building Ravagers. Not a whole lot of time for Cure to respond here. Once again, trying to build some bunkers in the natural. I do think he has more Marines than the last game, so we can actually fill 2 bunkers or maybe even a 3rd one. But he doesn't have any heavy-hitting units. And I mean, Reapers, you know, it's great that they can micro and actually doing a pretty damn good job of that. But oh my god, moving out with those Marines, that is exceptionally scary. What a dangerous maneuver there from Cure. He does save his Reapers though, and it seemed like that might have been his intentions. The Reapers had grenades, adding a little crowd control effect. Could be life or death difference. Speaking of the sim, oh, life or death, that actually does get completed. 1-1 will also finish, and the Lings have already been deleted. More Lings, however, powering this up. Dark is all-inning with this. He's not trying to drone because bunkers are up now. He thinks he can actually still break through. And one thing at least he can do is get into that main base and cause a lot of destruction to give him a chance into a macro game. That might be his plan here. I actually know he is going to go for the bunker, deciding that's not going to work out there, and I think that is correct. The wall of Marines and the wall of bunkers was too strong for the Lings. He does go into the main base, and again, this at least causes some chaos. But this actually might be more than just chaos. This might be the game-winning maneuver. The bunkers do not stand, and that is going to be it. Dark just bringing out the back-to-back Roach Ravager Ling all-ins. It's a 2-0 lead, and Cure is suddenly already on his last life. In the bottom left of Alcyone, it's this guy's last chance. It is Cure down 0-2. And in the top right, back-to-back Roach Ravager Ling all-ins. Dark now with a 2-0 lead. And I'm a pretty big Cure fan. At my very core, I am still a macro player. It's just that over the years, I've gotten jaded and tired of trying, as many people have. And so I don't really try to be the best macro player that I ever could be. I try and cheese instead. I just cheese and have fun, right? But at my core, I mean, I was a only macro player for like 9 years, I want to say. Turning my nose up at the cheesers on the ladder all the time. So those are typically still the players that I also really enjoy watching. So Innovation was one of my favorite players. Cure also love watching him when he's in top form, but it has been a bit of a struggle watching him, you know, continuously be in that top form. And then particularly in TVZ, he had his high at Gamers 8, and then he went back down. Then it was okay coming into Atlanta. I got round of 4 right. And then I'd say it's kept as okay, but in my opinion, one of his least impressive matchups is TVT constantly being honed because he has to face so many great Terrans in Korea. His TVP still remains one of the best, even though it's like shakier looking than you would expect. It's TVZ that seems to be not great for Cure. And honestly, at this point in time, it's not even that Cure is not playing great TVZ, because he hasn't really been able to play it. He's been starting it and then getting killed before he can really play it. His sandcastle keeps getting kicked over before it's done. And Dark would kick over a kid's sandcastle, wouldn't he? But Cure really needs to play to the player more here. You know, I can't really fault any plan in a best of when you start the plan. So him going for a 3cc double engineering bay in the first game and then getting smacked in the face by an all-in, that happens. But then he does it again, and it's a little more of a complicated scenario because he actually tried to be the bigger aggressor in the early game. He tried to be the tricky guy by adding on 6 Reapers instead of just 3. And again, that could have snowballed. Dark almost had the reverse situation happen to him where he was too greedy, and Cure was doing something a little more aggressive. Problem is that Cure wasn't really doing an all-in, so he missed an opportunity to snowball. That's it. The 6 Reapers look kind of useless after that. So yeah, it's a little more complicated in the second game, but nonetheless, you were doing something that really did not give you a lot of potential if they went for that mid-game Roach Ravager Ling all-in, which is clearly still possible, even though Dark opened up with a pretty greedy opener. So, you know, this is where I'd be screaming my head off, get a starport at the very least, good lord, and thankfully he is. Because that's really what's going to deter or mitigate the damage should Dark just continue to commit the Roach Ravager Ling all-in. A Banshee or two popping out and catching the Roaches in transit can actually be what like changes the mind of the Zerg player from committing to those 30 Lings or going, oops, okay, never mind, I'm not gonna do it. Like, I'm just gonna drones, just kidding, guys, it was a prank. And yeah, that would be an extreme difference if they've already committed to doing it. And then it suddenly gets very awkward for them. The Banshees aren't the end-all, be-all defense of a Roach Ravager Ling all-in because Lings can get to every nook and cranny and still do a lot of damage, but it is such a better deterrent that is one of the reasons you'll definitely see that being added in as well in a best-of series. It's just, even if it doesn't do a lot of damage or they don't all-in you and the Banshee ends up kind of being lame, you can at least say that you got it, and then the Zerg player doesn't just say, this guy never gets a Banshee, this guy never scouts, this guy never has enough defense, let's just all-in this guy 3 times in a row. So I'm really happy that Cure's doing that. I feel like that alone is playing a little more to his opponent. Dark, though, let's see what he has as far as information. His Overlord did sneak in all the way to the back. It was able to see that it was a natural and that it was a starport. The timing of the starport could reveal the 3rd CC, but I'm not sure when the Overlord went past it. So maybe he knows, maybe he doesn't. But either way, Dark is not doing it all in. His Roach Warren position alone is already like enough of a tell, but also the timing of it and his lair on the way. So he is going into a probably safe Roach style. Don't want to totally do away with the 1/1 Roach all-in option because, well, it could happen, but... In fact, I'm actually kind of leaning towards it the more I'm thinking of it. Just because Dark is the type of guy who would, like, 1-2 punch. And, okay, my Roach Ravager Ling all-in probably won't work 3 times in a row. But what if I just do a different type of all-in? That might still work. Let's wait and see. Kira also wanting to see exactly what his opponent's plans are. There's not been a lot of scouting thus far, as expected. Banshee will come in, but a Spore Crawler is already down. Dark, after all, saw the starport, and even if this ended up being only a Raven... Still a much safer plan to go ahead and build those spores. Overlord will get a scout into the main base. Kind of. Marine was actually on guard against that. Kira was mindful of the Overlord position. And so Dark actually did not see a whole lot more. Knows that it's Stim, so it's Bio, which... I mean, actually, like, that's kind of what you need to know, right? 3CC was scouted by the Lings. Again, also probably already known about. And then the only thing is that, you know... How fast was engineering base versus his barracks production might have been nice to know too, but that is not something that Dark will have information to. He won't have access to that one. 3 drones go down, but the Banshee's very limited in their usage. Overseer, Spore Crawler, tons of Queens every which way. It is +1 missile, so it is going to be a 1/1 Roach all in. No, it's not. It's not actually. Sorry, I'm in Sue mode. Sue, literally, if he got missile, he'd all in, and if he got melee, he wouldn't. But sorry, nope, he's actually in Infestation Pit. So he is still going to have upgraded roaches, but I think eventually we'll say that Baneling Nest added on and move over into melee as well. Alright, so not going to try and punch the guy who's a little off-balanced. Because even though Cure is a very experienced player and has been on the ropes in the past, there is always a chance that they're still a little rattled from being on their last life. And a little push will tip them right over the edge. Dark's not willing to bet on that. He's going to play a macro game, and so Cure finally gets to play his own TVZ. And so far, since nothing has happened, let's actually highlight how well Cure is doing. He's so far playing a perfect game. 3CC down about as fast as you would like. Hellions gets at home to safeguard against any Ling run-bys. Made it a really safe against harassment option. And then goes into a very typical 2 medevac drop of building up his tank counts. And he has been doing that from the get-go, so he's on to his 3rd tank. He does not know for sure this isn't... Okay, now he does, actually. Just kidding. That medevac drop into the natural literally tells him that it is not going to be a big swell of roaches. Infestation Pit and Hive both scouted by the double medevac drop, so... I mean, you don't necessarily need to push out against this, or you would be successful if you did. But... Either way, Cure isn't choosing to do so. He's on 8 racks, though, so he's definitely planning on moving out very soon, I would say. Clearing up some creep spread towards a very common location for the tanks, which is in this little center here at the 3rd base. Dark, no, he's got to know that that's got to be a common attack point, so he's quickly replacing the creep spread, and he's going to try and get ahead of the Zelnaga as well. Obviously, taking the Zelnaga, seeing the incoming tanks, that would be the big reveal if that is their intention, hitting your 3rd hatch. But if this is going to be an attack from Cure, yeah, I feel like it's really got to get going now, and it is finally going. The Hive is almost done. Vipers will be out, and Vipers are going to be an excellent tool against this 8 racks. The sooner that you can have those Vipers out and ready to go with energy filled up on them, the more that you're going to be able to take those tanks out of the equation before the push even really starts. If the Vipers were here, 1 or 2 tanks already get abducted, it's going to be terrible. But actually, it's not going to be a slow process. Dark, almost maxed out himself, just jumps on top of this, hoping to catch Cure off guard. I gotta say, that wasn't really all that off guard, though. Cure does manage to pull back his army. Yes, he loses all of the tanks. That seems like a really big deal. And, I mean, usually it would be. But that is a lot of bio left over. So Cure does not actually have to disengage. Plenty of medevacs, too, to heal up all these Marauders, which is also a really critical thing here. He's not 8 racks Marining. He's going into some Marauders. So those are going to be really chonky and really difficult for actually the army of Dark to kill when they're underneath the Medivacs. Marauders, they very often come out with like 5 health left over in these sustained damage battles. Banelings are explosive, but they don't kill Marauders too easily. So this is actually kind of a game of just stamina. And just look what happened there. The tank, once again, is target fired. Fine, great, but the Banelings looked almost entirely ineffective, leaving only Roach Ravager left after that. 2-2 finishes for the Terran against the 1-1 of the Roach Ravager, and this just seems like a slam dunk victory to me. Dark thinking that he can overwhelm the Terran, but it's trickier than that. It is trickier. You know, and I'm sure Dark knows how tricky this style of play can be and how tricky an 8-Rax can be as well, because it never seems to stop, no matter how good of a battle you have. But as a experienced Zerg player, I'm sure Dark knows that having taken 2 battles and not having ever dislodged the Terran is actually a bad sign. The fact that the Terran stays on your side of the map, no additional creep spread, starting to attack the hatch as my cats go crazy, like, that is a bad sign. So Dark knows that he's in a lot of trouble. Third hatch goes down. Vipers are out. Ultras are on the way. A big run-by being set up here as Dark realizes that the swarm approach has not worked. Is truly desperate. Here, anticipating this to a certain degree, actually had a run-by squad kind of set up because he scouted it, and also because he was mindful of rallying his reinforcements. And again, the Banelings just not making enough connections. There's plenty of bio left over. In this case, the tank does get abducted, but the tanks have actually not been the highlight of any of these battles. Parasitic bombs coming down is actually a really good idea. The Medivacs are a huge problem, and the bio is starting to get a little too far forward. You can see that a lot of them are going down. The overall supply here a little deceiving because we do have some Medivacs, right? Because we have reinforcements coming along that aren't actually a part of the main fight, and the Medivacs are almost out of juice, so there's not a lot of healing going on here. A very, very injured Terran army. Dark trying to stay in it because he knows that a fungal plus ultra surround combination could be his ticket back into this game. But of course, we know that this is really, really quite far gone. Dark does not have enough supply. Cure's already back up to 170. Yes, his Medivacs are out of energy, but it doesn't seem to really matter. A fungal ultra surround would take advantage of the weakened bio. No doubt about that. That would cause a collapse of like 40 army supply from Cure pretty quickly. But even then, that wouldn't be enough. Dark back up to 4 bases at the very least here. The 4th base to the left finally being taken at a very long time where his economy was in the gutter. Infestor will not get any type of good fungal. It looks like Cure was very mindful of that, knew that that would be the desperate play there, and has entirely avoided it. Somehow, some way, Dark supply actually a little bit better than before, but he is going to try and go in for the collapse before all of his army is really ready, and, well, that's not going to work. No, no, no. Cure finally gets to play a TTZ, and finally takes a game in this best of 5. So, could be the final game here. Top position of Amphion is Cure. Bottom position we have Dark. Feels like it's been a hot minute since I've seen this map, actually, but here we are. Cure gets to play his Terran versus Zerg. He actually gets to build up his units and then use the units. How amazing is that? Pretty amazing. Dark opting not to go for any form of aggression. He didn't go for the early all-in. He didn't go for the 1-1 Roach all-in. He tried to play a defensive style. Ends up going against the 8-Rax, which I gotta say is pretty popular nowadays. That thing has come in swinging back into the meta. In the Marauder version as well. And I don't know if he misplayed against it so much, because I think there is some merit to trying to do the swarm option against a Terran player. But the option he chose to try and defend that, which is to take engagements kind of preemptively almost, it didn't work. Simple as that. You all saw it with your own eyes. Cure was left with a lot of bio after almost every engagement, and it was already too far gone by the time the Medivac energy started to be a problem. Because if Dark had been taking better battles, saved his 3rd hatch, and was on one of his last fights, at that point, at the very end of that game, where Cure was out of health, out of Medivac energy, obviously not all the tanks, they kept getting destroyed. And then Dark still had his 3rd hatch, and so decent amount of supply. I think it's very, very different. That's very different. Ling surrounds even start to become kind of problematic for the Terran army that is all at half health. But that didn't happen. Dark was already too far gone by the time Kier was risking his bio. Dark does opt for a pool first build this time around. No gas. This is just mostly an annoyance, really. The Overlord of Dark is seeing that it is, in fact, a 1 Rax expand. Very typical stuff here. Going to be wary of a Marine post-Reaper. Looks to be getting up on that cliff, or... He's going to see that that's still building a second unit. No add-on. Wants to see if it's a factory, I guess. At the very least. He sees the fact... I was going to say, if he's going to have to dive. He does have the option to turn left, so that's okay. Plus, I totally forgot about this. Plus, the Lings are going to come. So the Marine, actually, that might have even been a bait. I played myself. I'm a goldfish. I quickly forgot what the opening of Dark was. That actually could have been a bait even. The Marine tries to run after the Overlord, and the Ling's going to surround. It is a little weirder on this map, just because the CC is so far away from the main, actually. So... like, for the Zerg player, you actually have to kind of commit to either stalling out the CC or going after the Marine. You can't really get both in due time. Plus, the Reaper was returning home after seeing that it was a hatch second. So, yeah. That wasn't exactly what a Zerg player would want. The only good thing about this is that the Overlord will get a full scout if it wanted to. It would have to suicide to do so, though. Yeah, and even that's not going to happen. Not going to be worth it right now. Yeah. It's not quite enough information, you know. That obviously can swap over at this second. There could be a starport. There actually is. It is a 3cc, but Dark doesn't know that for a fact as of yet. His Overlord's now in the poor position to see what army is coming out. Now it can't see anything. Can't see supply depots either. And obviously it's known about too. So one of the least good Overlords of the series so far. Sorry, buddy. Dark now getting his gases finally up and running. Remember that he skipped those. So while it was a less economical opener, it was also kind of more economical. I mean, kind of split the difference, I suppose. Roachborn being put on the front line and a Spore Crawler save on the drone is a nice touch. This Reaper knows that it has quite a bit of time to actually play around. Or does it? Actually, it doesn't. I mean, this could have been speed, but... he is playing on the front lines, rallying the Hellions to him. And if Speedlings were on the field, as they typically are at 3:30 in a very typical opener, the Reaper's probably already dead, right? So, just seeing that there isn't any is already a bit of a sign. The Marines still moving away the Overlord. I mean, this thing really is not even worth trying to suicide. It is going to see that there's a starport. Good news. Viking pops out. And I think that this Viking, besides the peskiness of Dark's Overlords in some of the initial games, I think it just makes sense for this map, right? I mean, it's all well and good to get the scouting Overlord out of the way, but this map has a close-by air thing going on. So Dark actually not even bothering to put the Overlords over on the left side as of yet. He probably would have eventually, but now that there's a Viking, you're not going to do that. So that's a lot of space for Kier to play with as the game goes on. He is still going to go into Banshees, but it is very much a decision to go Viking before Banshee. And it's a almost old-fashioned decision at this point, but probably warranted for the map. The Viking will actually see some intention of the Zerg player's expansion process, but, you know, it's not like it's the third hatch, obviously. The fourth is actually going over far to the right, and this could be the fifth or even the sixth. We'll see that left side development as the game goes on. Dark with the Roach Warren feels pretty safe without too many units. Only 4 Roaches and 3 Lings out in the field. Otherwise been droning up really hard, so got up to about 65. Started to build a lot of hatcheries and gases and whatnot. Vikings still doing an excellent job scouting. Can't find another Overlord for its life, but it is doing a great job scouting. And since Kira is playing kind of conservative with his Hellions to make sure that no Ling run-bys happen, which we know would not happen, but still. That's the only scout he has. And this is something that Kier did last game, so he's not threatening the creep straight of the Hellions, he's not threatening a run-by with the Hellions, he's not trying to go after slow Lings with the Hellions. They are just staying at home. And that can ensure that there's no run-bys, which Dark definitely does in his games, but it does take away a little bit of fear from the Zerg player. You know, there's tons of examples of Hellions doing very minimal damage and not even really mattering, even as they try to be aggressive. But it's still a decision. Again, like, this is something that he doesn't always do in every game. Now, the Banshee, though, I gotta say, is actually doing some pretty nice damage. I am a little confused as to how that happened. Maybe Dark actually really was anticipating Viking into Liberator. Because he has a couple of Spore Crawlers, but not every single base. They're kind of more anti-lib positions, maybe? I guess. I don't know, but the Banshees did 11 drones, 12, 13 drones worth of damage. Oh my god. So, yeah, forget the fear of the Hellions that I was talking about. That's nonsense. These Banshees have done more than they should because they are both still alive as well, and that's really going to be crucial for the future. One Banshee to scout the left side as the minerals have been broken open. That's either an expansion or future attempts to break down these minerals. And one to either the right side to track the attack path there, or just back at home helping against run-bys. Either way. The Banshees have, actually, they deserve a medal or something. Those are pretty freaking good. But, okay, moving on. Double medevac drop, heading into the main base. It's a little on the nose, isn't it? You just cleared out the Overlords on that side, but still, Dark not prepared for it. Spore Crawler was being made. Actually canceled. Good save. Queen Hubbard goes down. Overlord drone go down. And this is about the skedaddle, but, you know, that's about what you would hope for in today's StarCraft 2. Missouri players slightly out of position, but not totally unprepared. Hive is on the way, Lurkerden is on the way, and that thing is actually really fast. You know, we've had these Hives come in around this time, maybe even a little faster in some of Cyril's games, and sometimes they go straight into Ultras. But in this case, the Hydra's popping out, prepared to form into Lurkers. Let's see if Dark remembers both of his upgrades, as he definitely wasn't in the round of 8. That could be scary when not appropriately identified. And right now, what is Cure doing? 8 Raxing. You have a lot of units where the Lurker player might not have as many units, right? Because it's very expensive units that they're creating. And you are making a lot of relatively inexpensive 50 minerals for a Marine. So sometimes concaves can happen on Lurkers. Sometimes outpositioning of Lurkers can happen. We've definitely seen that. But that is actually what Cure has to hope for. Like, in terms of a straight-up battle against a building Lurker player, you don't really want a straight-up battle 9 times out of 10. Lurker upgrades both on the way. I love this. I'm actually going to really focus on this. If you guys did not watch Round of 8, he forgot so many Lurker upgrades. He either forgot all of the upgrades in his EVZ, or forgot one of them in his EVP, or both of them in his EVP. I forget, but, like, it was all over the place. He is so committed to not making that mistake that he actually builds the fast burrow with the range. And that's actually not what you would do as a pro gamer a lot of the time, because that is taking up resources that you might need right here, right now, particularly the gas. But he's, like, determined not to forget these upgrades. That's kind of funny. But the good news is he won't forget the upgrades. And so 8 Lurkers about to be ready here are ready to tango with the army. Here is going for direct engagement, but there's also Vipers. So while those tanks can help out against the Lurkers, obviously they're being abducted at this point. Blinding Cloud to try and save the Vipers does not work out. So that was actually kind of messy right there. Fungal on top of some of the units, but many of them still alive thanks to the massive amount of medevacs healing here. This actually is kind of scary. The Lurker count only at 6 at this point. Finally, the range has finished up. That is going to help quite a bit. 2-2 almost done, but not quite. Taking a little bit of a battle before that's done. Many of the units actually still injured. Medevac's not getting back to healing fast enough. Tanks injured, but not dead. Ravagers going in for that last shot. Finally find it alongside 2 Medevacs. I think those were reinforcing ones as well. That is actually kind of good. This has been a very, very messy battle on both sides, in my opinion. And what it has resulted in is both players being in not ideal positions, but both in manageable positions. And I would say Dark in a more manageable position. The army of Cure is just in tatters without the medevac healing. The Marauders are getting one-shot by freaking Queens. Banshees get F2'd in or on purpose, I don't know, but they're not helpful as the Queens came in very appropriately timed. Transfuses to help buy time as well as they focus fire down the Banshee. The Hydras come in trying to get some of these low health units killed. I don't know about this much longer, though. 2-2 versus 2-2. Hydra's actually put a better fight than I thought, but there they go. They are broken. The Lurker not able to help out enough against the concave of units, and Dark did overextend. I like the Queens from the left side initially, but then the attempt to save them was not a good idea, I think. I could see the logic not just to save queens, but more so because he saw injured bio with very little medevac energy, opportunities to snipe medevacs or the Banshee that did finally go down, by the way. No more Banshees on the field. I get the idea, but they didn't really work out. It was a little bit farther off of his base, though, so he has time to recoup here. So Dark kind of struggling for money, despite being on 70 drones. Hasn't actually spread his drones around, I think is currently the problem. That's exactly the problem. And to focus up on the battle on the front lines. Could have made a very, very bad mistake. Could have really over-dedicated with the Hydras, had almost no protection for the Lurkers, and when there's only 7 Lurkers, they can protect themselves to a degree, but you really want a front line. You want something else covering their asses so that they just get to throw their spines all damn day long. So that was a butt clench moment for the Dark fans, I would say, but things have really calmed down since then. Cure not able to find that one moment where he does overpower the Zerg. He just simply has too much. He was also kind of ragged, recovering from these consistent battles on this plateau, and so everyone just takes a freaking chill pill and calms down. But in that case, Cure is in a lot of trouble. Cure's supply might look fine. His economy also was even better than Dark's for a limited amount of time. Okay, I say better, that was an exaggeration. He was matching Dark's economy for a while, but he only has 3 CC. Trying to build the 4th after a committed 8 racks is really difficult. It takes so long, and you've already committed so long onto an 8 racks 3 CC that, you know, when you get to actually plant this down, if you do, you are desperate for money. You are sending all of your SCVs and dropping all the mules you have onto that one base, and if a Ling run by happens towards a planetary, forget about it. The other news is that Cure does not have a lot of resources to get to Ghosts, which he desperately needs. The good news is that his army is okay, so he can basically commit all of his funds to building Ghosts and finishing up his 3-3 upgrades. If he had been down in the dumps supply-wise, then he's just screwed. But it's still not a comfortable position. You don't have 2 factories either, in which case a lot of the macro TVZs would have multiple factories, some multiple splash units. It's a mess. It is a very messy transition for the 8-racks player into 4 bases, and it's even messier when the Zerg player did commit to Lurkers, in my opinion. I think they are way scarier than someone who has Ultras, which you can kind of stop by some SimCity. You know, if they get overconfident with Ultras, we know what happens then. Ultras are a great way to throw a game. Lurkers, not as much, in my opinion. We still see some bad maneuvers, but the Nidus Worms, this huge threat. This one is just waiting for something to happen. And it obviously was the reveal to Cure that there are Nidus Worms. It's nice to know that they're there, but what are you supposed to do about it? Ghost only getting 1 Lurker, where Dark's able to respond. Dark now back up to almost 6 bases mining, 73 drones. Enough Lurkers at 20 to have some back at home to defend against the drops that Cure's been trying to run around with. Cure is maxed out with 3-3, 15 Ghosts on his side. Couple of Vikings as well. I like that, actually, to help deal with the Vipers. It's about as good of a Terran army as you can expect to have after an 8 racks. Abducts do come down, kill... What the hell was that, actually? It was a Ghost and a tank? Anyway, the Vipers sacrifice himself for that, which I'm not going to say is a good thing for Dark, but does he really care? 3,000, almost 2,000 gas on the bank for Dark. Cure starting to build up his own mineral bank. Not in a gas bank. Actually ends up taking down the Lurkers that were defending the 6th hatchery. Nicely done. Saw them, scanned them, and dropped on them is what it looks like happened there. So he does get the cancel on the hatchery. Was it a kill? But either way, it doesn't, again, affect Dark all that much. His 3,000 mineral bank with his army still intact. If he had to replace his entire army, then 3,000 is not enough. But his army remains intact, and actually Cure is having a really difficult time dislodging this. Despite there being no protection for these Lurkers, they are successfully, I mean, they're protecting themselves, but they are successfully denying the 4th base, which Cure really needs at this point. He's long distance mining because he needs to. Finally, the Lurkers are dislodged. I just want to be taken care of, but there are just so many options for Dark. That's the game right now. There's a billion options for Dark and no options for Cure. Cure's option is to hope that Dark flubs an attack, which I gotta say is fairly likely. but not just one. He needs to hope that Dark flubs an attack into flubbing an attack, into overconfidence, into not realizing that his economy wasn't as good as he thought it was. Which has happened to many a pro gamer, actually. But it's a series of events that Kira is kind of just hoping happens. He can't really do much to force it. So in the 1,000 billion options that Dark has, this is one of them. Big Overlord drop into the main base. Nidus Swarm wasn't working out, so why not use Overlords? Nidus Swarm is on the way because the Lurkers have successfully gotten into the main base. Liberators do respond, and there's no Hydras here, so this ends up being maybe an okay defense from Pure, who is very mindful that there's going to be a second attack, so he's already on top of it. Darked 1-2 punch, not working out as well as he was hoping, but perhaps not the worst thing either. Hello? Okay. Unfortunately, Kira not able to pay attention right there. Didn't have others of his army over there either, and that is a mistake on Kira's side. I'm not going to say that it was an, unforced mistake, because it absolutely was. But Kira probably could have had a lot more of his army dealing with the right side and letting the Liberator slowly but surely take care of the main. They wanted a bio up there to actually kill any more Nidus Swarms. I guess that's what the current problem is. More army will spill forth from this Nidus Swarm in the tucked-in corner right there. Many SCVs have gone down. Orbitals have had to be lifted. This fourth base was an orbital, not a planetary, but an overcommittal of Hydras right there. Kira finally in the right place with the majority of his army. But yes, he has lost control of the main. It is one of the least important mains I've seen from a Terran player. Which is why maybe just giving up on it a little bit faster would have been the option, including lifting that orbital, but it's clear that Kira is just being torn all over the place. He cannot get his bases back under control, so he goes for a YOLO. Good old YOLO maneuver. That is an exceptionally dangerous thing to do. Base trading a Zerg player that has any form of splash, basically, so Banelings on creep, or in this case, Lurkers, being buried, being hidden, not being scanned, not being sniped. My god, there we finally have a scan! But that one Lurker added so much damage. Oh my good lord. Surprisingly enough, the Terran army survives. Good enough concave, good enough health insurance, and this is a full-on base trade. Dark has plenty of units, but they're all over the place, which is part of Kira's problem. He's losing access to his orbitals, to his production, to his mining. But now Dark is in a similar boat. He's going to lose access to his production, his mining, as well as some of his technology. Lurkers are burrowing when given the chance, and the scans are actually the biggest issue right now. Plenty of orbitals that are lifted, not able to scan. And yet Dark missed the opportunity to use those extra Lurkers. One scan finally does come down. He is landing them whenever he possibly can, but there are Lurkers actually all over the place. So he tries to scan, let them scan a safe location. That didn't work out very well. Nonetheless, still enough scans given to clear out the natural 5th, 3rd, and perhaps the main. That main is entirely vulnerable. Kira not wanting to sacrifice potential units going up a ramp into unknown territory. Still cannot actually land his orbitals, and he's going to lose them. He could actually lose a straight-up base race here. I mean, every last building could die for Kira. Dark maybe now desperate for that to happen. Lurk account at 10. Scans are no longer available. Okay, if scans are no longer available, then this is a no-brainer. The Lurkers win. Every time. By the way, I saw like 1 billion EMPs on that natural fight. Did you guys see that as well? And I didn't really pay attention to what they were for. But I might go back and see. It almost looked like he thought that they would reveal the burrowed Lurkers, which is not how that works. But we'll go back and see what he was trying to EMP. He might have also just been misclicking. Like, things have clearly gone so wagadoo that I could see him misclicking EMP instead of snipe. Very, very different hotkeys, but still, it could have happened. Anyway, he also might have just been getting some infestors that I didn't notice. They got killed beforehand. But we are literally in base race territory, guys. Like, these 2 barracks and a supply depot somehow are actually it. Dark's army supply is currently even. We have Cloak versus Burrowed situations going down. Hive is done. Overseers could be made. Well, I guess the thought process is that'd be useless. Oh, one uncloaked ghost. Making problems for the other ones. Medivacs are not invisible, so hello. There we go. Cleaning out the Hydras, cleaning up some Lings, but Lurkers will splash units in their trajectory, their spine trajectory. I guess Dark is just planning on losing his hive, is why he's rebuilding the lair. That's fair. And again, the overseers are basically useless. I could certainly see that. Soaking up a snipe wouldn't be terrible, but only if you could guarantee they soaked up a snipe. Well, you can see them actually being almost killed by just the regular attack. Cure running around trying to kill the bases while making sure that his barrack stays alive. That is his current problem. He's got 50 minerals to his name, 0 SCVs, and 3 buildings, one of which is going to tuck itself into the corner. There is certainly a location here where nothing that is on the ground can reach. So without Corruptors, Dark can't actually win this game by base race. He could still win it just by, you know, Cure not able to kill him, so. If Cure cannot break a mining base of Dark, so this one is apparently... Oh my god, that fungal! Oh, Cure was not paying attention. Oh god. Oh, Jesus. Oh, well. I don't think he was breaking that anyway. I don't know, actually. I mean, snipes are pretty good. If he was paying attention, he would have sniped... maybe one of the lurkers, then he would have had to run, but he still would have been able to. If he had EMP'd, obviously, and not gotten fungled. There's a little more of a game to be played there with all those ghosts. I can see why Cure tapped out. He has no second army. That's this one. He has no third army. Oh, well, anyway. That was a base race. That was a base trade. That was the last game as well. All it took was a couple of ghosty boys going down. Yeah, I wanted to see what he was trying to EMP. So just to be super clear to everyone out there who just has the general question, EMP reveals Dark Templars, which is very nice of them. But they do not reveal all invisible units. They just reveal cloaked units. Every cloaked unit is an invisible unit, but not every invisible unit is a cloaked unit. So, lurkers are burrowed, and burrow does not get revealed by EMP. I'm sure I was just missing. He was also... Oh, you know what he was probably doing? He was probably preemptively EMPing for any fungals that came out of the Nidus Worm. Oh, maybe on the Queens, too. I didn't even consider that. Oh my god, that's what he was doing. It was on the Queens. Oh, I just, like, totally blanked that Queens were even helping. But no, that actually makes sense. Transfuses, particularly on the lurker, if it was scanned, which it will be in 1 second, like, that could have actually made an invulnerable lurker. Okay, alright, that makes so much more sense. I'm like, Cure has got to know that doesn't reveal. Like, this is... I never actually doubted that, but I did wonder what he was trying to do. The Queens. Okay. Actually ended up being a cool last game, but overall, kind of a must series, for being honest. Cure gets taken down, which means that Dark will get to his GSL finals appearance.